The call came in just before noon, when the day was already getting uncomfortably hot. I was inside our small field office, updating reports from the previous week, when one of the reserve staff phoned in. His voice sounded uneasy, not urgent in a loud way, but concerned enough that I stopped what I was doing. He said a white lion had been seen lying near a dry waterhole, barely moving. What stood out wasn't just the animal's condition, but the fact that its body appeared to be covered in dark patches, small, black clusters that didn't look like dirt or mud. He wasn't sure what they were, but he suspected parasites. Within a few minutes we decided to go and check. We left with a basic medical kit, some restraint equipment and tranquilizers just in case. The drive to the area took about an hour over uneven terrain. On the way, we discussed possibilities. Ticks were common, especially in the hotter months, but the description didn't fully match. The staff member said the black patches were dense, almost like layers. That suggested a heavy infestation, possibly something more severe than normal tick clusters. I had seen animals weakened by parasites before, but rarely to the point of being unable to move. We parked at a distance and continued on foot. The reserve was unusually quiet, and even the usual signs of animal movement seemed absent. When we reached the edge of the dry waterhole, I saw the lion. It was lying on its side, its pale coat dull and dusty. Even from that distance, the dark patches were clearly visible. They were scattered across its shoulders, neck, and back, appearing almost like stains. But as I focused, I realized they were moving, tiny, slow movements that made my stomach tighten. We approached cautiously, watching for any sign of aggression. A healthy lion would not allow us to get close. But this one barely reacted. It lifted its head slightly, then let it drop back down. That was when I could clearly see the parasites. They were attached to the skin in dense clusters ticks, but in numbers far beyond what I had ever seen. Some areas looked almost completely black from the sheer concentration. The skin beneath appeared inflamed and irritated. We stepped back to discuss our approach. The lion was weak, but it was still a wild animal. We couldn't take risks. We decided to sedate it lightly to allow safe handling. One of my colleagues prepared the tranquilizer while I kept watch. The dart was delivered from a safe distance, and we waited. It took about 10 minutes for the drug to take effect. The lion's breathing slowed, and its body relaxed further. We approached carefully, confirming it was adequately sedated. Up close, the condition was worse than we had expected. The ticks were not just on the surface. They were embedded deeply in the skin, especially around the ears, neck, and under the legs. Some areas were raw, likely from constant irritation and scratching. The lion's gums were pale, a sign of possible anemia from blood loss. It was clear that this infestation had been building for some time, not just a recent issue. We began by removing the ticks manually from the most sensitive areas, the face and around the eyes. It was slow work. We used forceps to pull them out one by one, making sure not to leave mouthparts embedded in the skin. Each removal left behind a small, irritated mark. There was no quick way to do it safely. Rushing would only cause more harm. The heat made the work uncomfortable, but we couldn't stop. After clearing the worst clusters, we applied a topical treatment designed to kill remaining parasites. It had to be used carefully, in controlled amounts, to avoid harming the lion. We worked section by section, spreading the solution over the affected areas. The smell was strong, but it was necessary. This treatment would help eliminate the ticks we couldn't remove manually and prevent new ones from attaching. We also administered supportive care. One of my colleagues prepared a fluid injection to help with dehydration. Another checked for any signs of infection in the more damaged areas of skin. There were a few spots that looked concerning, but nothing that required immediate surgical intervention. Still, we made a note to monitor those areas closely if we were able to track the lion later. As we worked, I kept thinking about how the lion had reached this state. Ticks are common, but such heavy infestations usually occur when an animal is already weakened or unable to groom itself properly. It might have been injured earlier or struggling to hunt. Without enough strength, it wouldn't be able to maintain its condition, allowing parasites to build up unchecked. After nearly an hour of work, the difference was visible. The dense black patches had reduced significantly. The lion's coat, though still dirty, looked more like its natural pale color again. There were still ticks present, but far fewer than before. The treatment would continue to work over the next several days, killing those we couldn't reach. We stepped back and observed the lion for a few minutes, making sure its breathing remained stable under sedation. Everything seemed normal. We administered a reversal agent to help it regain consciousness gradually. It's always a tense moment waiting for an animal to wake. We moved back to a safe distance and watched. The lion stirred after about 10 minutes. It lifted its head slowly, blinking as it adjusted. For a moment it seemed disoriented, but then it pushed itself up onto its front legs. It didn't stand fully, but it was clearly more alert than before. That alone felt like progress. It looked around, then settled again, breathing steadily. We decided not to stay any longer. The area needed to remain quiet for the lion to recover without stress. Before leaving, we marked the location and informed the reserve team to keep watch from a distance. Follow-up would be important. If the lion didn't improve, we might need to intervene again. But for now, we had done what we could. A few days later, we received an update. The lion had been seen walking, slowly but steadily, and even attempting to hunt. The parasite load had reduced further, and its condition was improving. It wasn't a dramatic recovery, but it was enough. Looking back, the situation hadn't required anything extraordinary. Just careful observation, patience, and basic treatment. Sometimes that's what makes the difference between an animal fading away and getting another chance to survive.